They fined me $500 for unapproved dock repairs, when all I'd done was replace 3 rotten planks so my daughter wouldn't fall through. 7 days later, an officer knocked, holding a notice stamped eviction under Section 1204. That's when I started recording everything. Welcome to my channel. I'm Ethan Miller, a contractor out of Spokane, Washington, and this one started with a simple wish, to keep my late wife's cabin safe for our girl. If you're new here, pull up a chair, hit subscribe if you're the kind who believes neighbors deserve fairness, and tell me where you're watching from. I like knowing who's out there past the lake. The cabin sits on Willow Ridge Lake, 12 miles north of town, hidden behind pines and a curved dock that mirrors the one you see on postcards. When my wife Claire passed in 2019, I promised our daughter, Lila, I'd never sell it. The HOA didn't like promises that didn't pass through their board. The first letter came in March, $150 fine for non-conforming railing color. Ours was cedar brown, same as every year since 1987. I wrote back with a scanned paint receipt and a note that said, color code unchanged. 2 days later, a second fine, $300 for debris obstruction. The debris was the stack of lumber for the railing they claimed didn't match.
We need to resolve this now.
At the next HOA meeting, I stood in the back while President Carol Jennings, every neighborhood has a Carol, read from her binder like it was scripture. We must preserve uniformity, Mr. Miller. This dock reflects on the community's property values. She smiled as she said community, but everyone knew she meant herself and her lakefront clique.
We need to resolve this now. It's been going on
After
for
the
too
meeting,
long.
my neighbor, Tom Reyes, caught me by the vending machine. He's a retired postal worker who's lived here since the Reagan years, with a laugh like a cough and eyes that always seem to measure distance. Don't fight her head on yet, he whispered. She's got the bylaw book, but you got time on your side. Document everything.
We need to resolve
Always
this now.
timestamp.
It's been going on
He was
for
right.
too long.
I started a binder, printed emails, envelope postmarks, audio transcripts of every call, and yes, Washington's a one-party consent state. Recordings lawful. I built a timeline down to the minute. Then came the kicker. They posted a public notice accusing me of unauthorized commercial use of the dock because my cousin had parked his fishing boat there for the weekend. Remove all vessels within 72 hours or face impound. Impound, like it was a junkyard, not a lake. I called the number on the notice and got Carol herself. You're violating Section 8.11, she said, sharp and cheerful. That dock's common property. I said, common property maintained solely by me since the Reagan years, remember? She paused then. If you can't comply, vacate or get wrecked. She hung up. That phrase burned itself into my mind. Vacate or get wrecked. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Lila coloring beside me. She drew the lake, blue and calm, with our cabin and a little heart above it. I told her we might have to fight for it. She said, like Mom said about her students, Claire used to teach civics. Know the law, use the law. So I started reading. The HOA's covenants, conditions, restrictions, CCRs, 68 pages of small print filed in 1983. Then the Washington Common Interest Ownership Act, Title 64.38 RCW. I learned that any HOA acting beyond its recorded authority risks voiding its enforcement actions. And their authority line, I noticed, stopped 20 feet short of my dock. That boundary would become everything. Still, in those early weeks, it was all reaction. I fixed things they claimed broken, painted things already perfect, and tried to keep peace. But peace doesn't sell in HOA politics. Carol needed a win before the next board election. Late one night, I found a file box in the attic labeled Original Plat Maps, 1983. Inside, yellowed blueprints showed Parcel 14, the cabin lot, ending with a handwritten note. Dock to remain private, see Recorded Easement 14B. The easement, a 30-year clause, had expired in 2013, but no one ever renewed it, meaning the dock, by law, had reverted fully to the parcel owner. Me. Knowledge. Nugget number 1. When an easement expires without renewal, ownership and maintenance responsibility revert to the underlying parcel holder. Most HOAs miss that in their updates. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the officer's knock, the echo of boots on the deck, and that phrase, vacate or get wrecked, looping like a curse. I poured coffee, opened my laptop, and began scanning the plat maps, emailing them to myself with timestamps. Digital proof. I knew I had something, not enough to strike yet, but enough to wait. The next morning, I called Tom. "You ever seen the original plat?" He chuckled through the phone. "Carol keeps those locked up like gold bars." "Why?" "Because I think she's been policing water she doesn't own." He whistled. "Careful, son. Folks like her don't back down. They double down." He was right again. 3 days later, a patrol boat labeled HOA Police idled outside my dock. 2 volunteers in reflective vests filmed me from their phones, narrating about ongoing violations. I waved. Then I held up a printed copy of RCW 6438.05U, the section about unlawful board actions. That's when I decided to build my counteroffensive, quietly, legally, and with every comma lined up. Because if they wanted a fight over who owned 20 feet of water, I was going to show them what 20 feet of paper could do. The following week, I visited the county recorder's office downtown. The place smelled like old carpet and toner, the kind of air that hums with fluorescent lights and secrets no one's checked in years. I asked the clerk, a woman with half-moon glasses and a cardigan full of cat hair, for any filings tied to Willow Ridge HOA, Parcel 14, and Easement 14B. She pulled a microfilm roll from a drawer, slid it into a reader, and frowned. "Funny," she said, tapping the screen. "There's no renewal filed after 2013. It just stops, which means the HOA's got no active jurisdiction over that dock." I asked for certified copies, paid the $18.75 fee, and watched the machine stamp the official seal. The paper was warm when I took it. Warm and heavy, the weight of proof. Driving home, I rehearsed the confrontation in my head. Carol would deny, deflect, maybe smile that boardroom smile. But the law wasn't on her side anymore. Still, I wanted every angle locked before I made a move. That's when I met Rachel Cho, a municipal attorney who specialized in real estate and HOA compliance. Tom had found her through a retired cop friend. She looked younger than I expected. Late 30s, hair in a bun, ink stain on her wrist from writing notes. Her first line to me was, "You're not my first HOA crusader, but you might be the calmest." I handed her the easement papers, the CCRs, and my binder. She read for 20 minutes without speaking, only sipping from a battered thermos labeled City Legal Clinic 2015. Then she leaned back. "Ethan, this is good. They're overreaching on jurisdiction. But you need to build more than a defense. You need leverage, something that makes them come to you." That word, leverage, lodged in my head. "Meaning?" I asked. "Find a clause, a contract, or a service they depend on that ties back to your parcel. HOAs always have one weak link: utility hookups, insurance coverage, or maintenance covenants they forgot to renew. Once you find it, don't flaunt it. Document it, hold it, and let them bury themselves." It was the smartest thing anyone had told me in months. That night, I spread every document across the kitchen table. Lila was asleep, Tom's porch light flickered next door, and the lake reflected the moon like a mirror with one crack down the middle. At the bottom of one old file was a line item from 2002, dock maintenance fee, parcel 14 remittance, $0. Owner maintains privately per CCR addendum 14B. There it was. The HOA had been skipping liability insurance on the dock because it wasn't technically theirs, meaning if they enforced anything there, fines, patrols, even trespass, they assumed liability they weren't insured for. A legal trap waiting for a single misstep. 2 days later, Carol staged her big play, a safety inspection. 3 board members, clipboards in hand, marched onto my dock with a volunteer officer filming. "We're here to assess structural risk," she said, waving papers I recognized as homemade. "You're trespassing," I said calmly. "You've got no recorded right of entry on this structure." She smirked. "We'll see what the sheriff says." 10 minutes later, a Spokane County deputy rolled up. He listened to both sides, flipping through the documents. "This plat map says private ownership. Do you have any updated filing?" he asked her. Carol's smile cracked. "It's common area," she insisted. "Then where's your insurance certificate?" She had none. The deputy turned to me, nodded once, and said, "Sir, they can't enforce without jurisdiction. You're good to go." That was my first official validation. Neutral authority. Law on record. After they left, Carol shouted across the dock, "This isn't over. Her voice carried over the water like static. Maybe not, I thought. But the current had changed direction. Early the next morning, I uploaded every scanned document, timestamp, and bodycam clip from that day into a secure cloud folder labeled Doc Ownership Archive. I also printed 3 full binders, one for Rachel, one for me, and one sealed at the county notary's office. It felt like setting traps in the dark. Later that week, Rachel called. "They're going to retaliate," she said. "It's pattern behavior. Expect inspections, citations, maybe online posts. Document it all. Remember, retaliation strengthens your claim." Sure enough, within days, the flood started. A trash can violation, my bin supposedly out too early, even though timestamps proved otherwise. A noise complaint for the sound of my power tools at 2 p.m. within working hours. A paint mismatch notice citing reflectivity variance. I didn't even know paint could have that. Then Carol went nuclear. A post on the community Facebook page titled "Unsafe Structures Endanger Residents." It showed a photo of my dock, cropped to look like it was collapsing. Comments poured in. "He's endangering our kids. Shouldn't be allowed near the lake." Tom texted me screenshots. "You okay?" I was furious, but also focused. I replied, "Let her talk. She's writing my exhibits for me." Still, the stress crept in. Lila started sleeping in my bed, saying the lake felt mean. One night I found her coloring the dock again, this time with cracks in it. I kissed her forehead and promised, "It's just a picture, sweetheart. The real dock's stronger than ever." That's when the fear turned into resolve. If Carol wanted a fight, she'd get one, but not the kind she expected. And before the next HOA meeting, I'd have my first piece of real leverage, something she couldn't shout over or fine away. By mid-April, the HOA's harassment had taken on a rhythm, almost like they had a calendar for torment. Monday, citation. Wednesday, anonymous concerned resident email. Friday, threat of lien. Every notice came on paper with the same perfumed stationery Carol used for meeting invites: lavender ink, self-importance, and fear. I treated each one like a lab specimen. Gloves on, photo from 3 angles, digital scan, log entry. My binder swelled to 3 inches thick, the spine labeled in black marker. Evidence, Phase 1. Rachel called it the slow bleed stage. She told me, "Let them keep cutting themselves on the paper. The more they write, the more you own their record." She was right again. Still, I needed a plan, not just a defense, something surgical. The idea came from a simple line in the HOA's annual report: dock insurance premium, reimbursed via parcel assessments. But they had no dock coverage since 2013, yet they'd been billing every homeowner $26.40 a month for it. Multiply that by 62 homes and 12 months, a clean $19,641.60 per year in phantom premiums. I double-checked with their listed carrier. The rep emailed back, "We have no active policy under that association name since 2014. That was it. Fraud by omission. If exposed, they'd face not only civil penalties, but loss of their director's officer's insurance. That's the policy that shields board members personally from liability. Remove that, and every one of them would be on the hook individually." Still, I couldn't go public yet. I needed to understand the full scope. Knowledge nugget number 1, reinforced. In most states, HOA board members are personally liable for acts done outside recorded authority or without DO coverage. Tom helped me build the timeline, his pen scratching on yellow pads while his old thermos hissed steam. "You know," he said, "back in the post office, they used to call this PAP, trail justice. You don't chase the crook, you just follow where the ink runs." We laughed, but it was the kind of laugh people make before walking into battle. The next HOA meeting fell on April 23rd. Carol strutted in wearing her red blazer and a smile so tight it squeaked. The room smelled of burnt coffee and Lysol. When she reached the microphone, she said, "Item 1, enforcement update. The Miller property remains non-compliant." I raised my hand. "Point of order, Madam President. Before you proceed, I request that this meeting be recorded under RCW 64.388.045 for transparency." She froze. "We don't allow recordings here." "Washington's a one-party consent state," I said, "and this is a public HOA meeting." You're now on record." Gasps, murmurs, a few phones raised. Carol's jaw flexed. Later that night, Tom texted me, "You just opened Pandora's binder." Maybe I had, but the look on her face told me she'd realized something. She wasn't the only one keeping records anymore. Midway through May, Rachel and I filed a public records request to the county for all HOA filings tied to their annual insurance declarations. Within 5 business days, the county clerk emailed a folder with exactly one PDF, Notice of Cancellation, Willow Ridge HOA, March 2014. Nothing after. We had them cold. Now it was about timing. Rachel's words echoed, "Don't flaunt it, hold it." So I waited. Then came the second engagement moment, right on cue. If you've ever been burned by an HOA, tell me in the comments how you pushed back. If you haven't, scroll down and drop a tip for those who have to face this circus. And to the HOA lurkers reading, leave your justification here. I dare you. The next week, Carol escalated again. She posted a safety evacuation drill notice requiring all lakefront residents to vacate docks on June 1st for inspection. It was a power play, pure theater. But the fine print revealed her biggest mistake. Events sponsored by HOA Insurance Division. A division that no longer existed. I smiled when I read it. The leverage Rachel had told me to find was right there, printed in Arial 10-point font. All I had to do was let her hold her fake parade. The day before the drill, I met with Dean Harper, a civil engineer Rachel recommended, known for testifying in HOA infrastructure cases. He had weathered skin and an easy grin, the kind that makes juries listen. He walked the dock, tapping planks with a metal rod. "Structurally fine," he said. "In fact, safer than most I've seen. But if they're calling this unsafe, they'll need permits to remove it, and they don't have any." He signed his report on site, date stamped 05/31, 3:47 p.m., and emailed it directly to me. I filed it next to the insurance lapse. Carol didn't know it yet, but by scheduling her little spectacle, she'd handed me the rope she'd hang her authority on. That night I ched the lake through the window, flat, silver, waiting. I could hear the hum of the HOA patrol boat engine idling somewhere in the dark, like a shark testing the current. Tomorrow, they'd come with their clipboards and cameras. And for the first time, I'd be ready, not with anger, but with evidence. Because justice, I'd learned, doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits with a timestamp. The morning of June 1st broke clear and bright, sun cutting across the water like a scalpel. At 9 o'clock a.m., right on schedule, 4 HOA board members, Carol in front, marched down the path toward my dock. Behind them rolled the HOA patrol boat. 2 men in polos with security volunteer patches. The air smelled like gasoline and arrogance. I didn't move until they reached the gate. Carol raised her hand. "Mr. Miller, please vacate. This structure is now under HOA inspection." I smiled. "Before you step foot on that dock, you might want to call your insurer." She laughed. "We don't need your permission." I stepped aside and nodded toward the road. 2 cars pulled in, one marked County Building Department, the other Spokane Herald. A reporter friend of Rachel's named Ellen Vasquez, with a camera bag and a calm smile. "This inspection's now public," I said. "Every word and action documented for the record." Carol's expression shifted from smug to pale. "You can't—" "Oh, I can," I said. RCW 6438.050. Open governance and inspection rights apply when HOA activities affect property value or access. You posted this event publicly. That makes it fair ground. The county inspector, Mark Dillard, stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "Morning. Got your permit number, ma'am?" Carol blinked. "This is an internal safety check." He looked unimpressed. "Any structural work on a dock over 20 feet requires county permit and proof of liability coverage. Do you have either?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. The volunteers behind her fidgeted. Mark turned to me. "Mr. Miller, you have ownership documents." I handed him the certified plat map and the 2002 addendum. He studied them, whistled low, and said, "Looks solid. This is your structure. HOA's got no jurisdiction here." Ellen's camera clicked 3 times. The silence that followed was the kind of quiet that changes Eve. Writhing. Carol muttered, "We'll handle this legally." Rachel's voice came through my phone speaker. I had her on standby. "Already am," she said. and I'd recommend everyone step back before they commit trespass under County Code 9.2040. Carol turned scarlet. This isn't over. Actually, Rachel said, it is for today. They retreated, muttering, while Ellen packed her camera. She gave me a look that said, this story's going to have legs. That night, the HOA's website went into maintenance mode. Tom called, chuckling. Guess who's cleaning digital footprints tonight? Still, I didn't celebrate. Carol was pride-wounded, and people like that lash out before they back off. By June 3rd, my mailbox was overflowing. 8 separate violation letters in one day. They even cited me for improper grass length near dock access. The rulebook specified 3.5 inches. Mine measured 3.7. It was laughable until it wasn't. Lila came home crying. Her friend's parents told her she couldn't come over anymore until her daddy stopped breaking rules. That one cut deep. That night I stared at the stack of notices spread across the table. Each letter, each date stamp, each lie. Everyone was fuel. Knowledge nugget number 2. In most jurisdictions, repeated baseless citations can constitute harassment under state landlord-tenant or consumer protection laws when issued by quasi-governing bodies like HOAs. Rachel's voice on the phone was calm. You're building a retaliation case whether they realize it or not. Let them keep going. They're proving motive. But waiting felt like swallowing fire. I needed to channel it. So I started a public transparency portal, a simple website with every HOA notice, timestamp, and legal citation uploaded for residents to see. I didn't add commentary, just evidence. Within 48 hours, half the neighborhood had viewed it. By the 3rd day, I got an email from Linda Parks, an elderly widow on the far side of the lake. She wrote, "They fined me $200 for my bird feeder. Thank you for standing up." That message turned my private fight into a community one. At the next meeting, attendance doubled. Carol tried to control the narrative, pounding the gavel. "We will not tolerate false information online." Tom raised his hand. "Then disprove it." She glared. "You're all being misled by a man who wants to undermine the board." I stood. "No, I want to restore it." The room murmured, tension thick as humidity before a storm. Carol banged the gavel again, but fewer people flinched this time. Afterward, Tom clapped my shoulder. "You just shifted the current." On the drive home, I thought about what he said. For the first time, it wasn't just my dock. It was everyone's right to peace in their own homes. So I doubled down. Rachel helped me draft a formal notice of intent to litigate, citing violations of RCW 1986, consumer protection, and 9.12, harassment. We didn't file it yet, just sent it certified mail to the HOA's registered agent. It landed on June 10th at 11:32 a.m. I know because I watched the tracking. That was the moment the countdown began. Carol still didn't know that I'd secured something far more powerful than a website or a lawyer. Because 3 weeks earlier, while she was posting her safety drill, I'd quietly bought something she didn't know was for sale. And when she found out, her entire empire of fines and threats would collapse in front of everyone. It started with a late-night message from Dean, the engineer. "Check county surplus listings," he wrote. "They're unloading easements again." I opened the site, scrolling past drainage ditches and utility corridors until I saw it. Parcel Access Lease 14B. Dock Approach Easement. Willow Ridge, HOA Vicinity. Starting bid, $1,000. It was the 30-foot strip of land connecting my driveway to the dock. The same easement the HOA had been pretending gave them jurisdiction. When the county's old paperwork lapsed, it defaulted to surplus property. I placed a bid immediately. No competition. 2 weeks later, a stamped deed arrived by certified mail. Recorded June 2nd, 10:17 a.m. I now legally owned the strip they thought was theirs. Rachel's reaction was pure professional glee. "Ethan, that's reversal number 1. That's your leverage." We agreed to keep it silent until the right moment. Meanwhile, the retaliation intensified. Carol had apparently formed a safety task force. They patrolled the lake with flashlights at night, noting infractions. I woke once to find a citation taped to my window. Unauthorized exterior lighting, too bright. It was my porch light. Tom started getting them too. "They're trying to isolate you," Rachel warned. "Classic intimidation pattern. Stay calm." Keep filing your evidence." So I did. Every notice scanned, numbered, and uploaded. My evidence log hit 147 entries by mid-June. The pile became my shield. Still, there were moments it got under my skin. One night, around midnight, I found footprints in the wet soil near my shed. Boot treads. I shone my flashlight. Nothing. But the next morning, the padlock on the gate was bent. I filed a police report. "Could be trespass," the deputy said, jotting notes. "You've got cameras?" I nodded. "Now I do." I installed 3 motion sensor cams the next day, all legal, all within my property line. That Lila asked, "Dad, are we in trouble?" I hesitated before answering. "No, sweetheart, we're fixing something broken." The look in her eyes reminded me of Claire's steady faith, the belief that standing up, even when small, could change big things. That thought carried me. Then came the anonymous letters. "No return address. Block handwriting. You're making things worse. Move out before you regret it." I turned them into Rachel, who shook her head. "They're panicking. You're close." And she was right. The HOA's mask was cracking. At the June 28th board meeting, Carol announced a special assessment to fund legal defense against baseless claims. Homeowners would each owe $425. The room erupted. A man in the back shouted, "Baseless? You've been finding us blind for months." Carol banged her gavel, voice trembling. "If you're not with this board, you're against this community." I stood, slow and deliberate. "Then let's talk about community funds, specifically the $19,640 a year collected for dock insurance that doesn't exist." Gasps. Tom muttered, "Here it comes." Carol's face went pale. "That's a lie." I pulled out the printed cancellation notice, slid it across the table. "From your insurer, dated 2014, never renewed. Yet you've billed us every year since." Someone shouted, "Is that true?" Another, "Where's the money, Carol?" She tried to speak, but the room turned into a storm. I watched it happen, the quiet domino starting to fall. Rachel texted me during the chaos. "Not yet. Hold the easement until public verification. One more push and we strike." I pocketed the deed again, heart pounding. The fight was bigger than me now. That night on my porch, I watched the rain streak the glass and listened to thunder roll over the water. It was the kind of night Claire used to say made the world wash itself clean. Between lightning flashes, I saw HOA patrol rigs, HTs sweeping across the lake again. One beam stopped on my dock, lingered, then moved on. I whispered to the dark, "You're running out of time." Knowledge nugget number 3. In most states, once a property owner acquires or reclaims an easement integral to HOA jurisdiction, the association must either compensate the owner or amend its charter. Failure to do so can void subsequent enforcement actions. 2 days later, Rachel sent a short message. "Public set piece next week. HOA annual meeting. Bring your binders." And the deed. It was time. But before the showdown, I wanted to hear the lake quiet again. I took Lila fishing at dawn. Mist hovered above the water, the world soft and forgiving for once. She caught a tiny perch, squealed, then whispered, "Mom would have loved this." "Yeah," I said. "She would have." By noon I was back at the table, laying out evidence in precise stacks. Binder clips snapped shut one by one. Camera batteries charged. A single label on the front cover. June 30th. Hearing. Ownership, insurance, harassment. As the sun dipped, I looked over everything one last time and said aloud, "Tomorrow's the last meeting they ever run like that." And I meant it. The annual HOA meeting was scheduled for July 1st, 6 o'clock p.m., inside the Willow Ridge Community Hall, the same place where Claire used to host her students' reading nights. I arrived early, wearing the same navy jacket I'd worn to our wedding. It felt right, formal, respectful, and quietly defiant. Tom was already there, seated by the side aisle with a small recorder resting on his knee. Rachel sat near the back, phone in hand, expression calm but coiled, the way a litigator looks when she knows the next move. The air was humid, thick with tension, and the scent of copy toner from the stack of agendas Carol had printed. Carol opened with the pledge, her voice brittle. "We're here tonight to address ongoing disruptions within our community," she began, glancing at me. Certain individuals have misinterpreted our bylaws and spread misinformation online. I stood. You mean evidence? Gasps fluttered through the room. Mr. Miller, she said, you are out of order. Actually, I'm right on time. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a thin brown envelope, the county sealed deed. This is the recorded transfer of easement 14B purchased legally through county surplus, recorded June 2nd. It grants me full control of the access lane and dock approach you've been claiming for enforcement. The room went dead silent except for the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Carol blinked. That's impossible. The county would have notified us. They did, I said, sliding a copy of the certified notice across the table. Your registered agent signed for it, June 5th, 11:03 a.m. She looked like she'd been struck. The treasurer beside her whispered something. The secretary's pen froze midair. Rachel stood up from the back row, projecting her voice clearly. Per state statute, any enforcement beyond that boundary since June 2nd is an ultra-virus act, outside lawful authority. That means personal liability for the board under RCW 64.38.025. Carol's knuckles whitened around her gavel. You're bluffing. The back door opened. Mark Dillard, the county inspector, stepped in. Same man from the failed safety inspection. He held a clipboard and nodded to me. Evening, got a call from the paper. They said there was a dispute over county property. Just confirming the record, easement 14B is now privately owned by Mr. Ethan Miller. HOA authority ceases at marker post 14. There it was. Neutral authority, on record. Ellen's camera shutter snapped 3 times from the corner. The crowd murmured louder. Neighbors whispering, he owns it? Is she serious? After all those fines? Carol's voice broke. We'll contest this. Mark cut her off gently. You can, but it won't change the record. You'll need a court order to override it. The deed. And given the lapse, that's unlikely. I could almost hear the sound of dominoes tipping. She dropped the gavel. Meeting adjourned. No, said Tom from the side, standing. Not this time. People clapped. Slowly at first, then louder, until the sound filled the hall. Carol fled the podium, red-faced, whispering to the treasurer. I didn't chase. Rachel motioned for calm, whispering, let the paper handle the echo. Afterward, neighbors crowded around me. Linda Parks hugged me, trembling. I thought they'd never be stopped, she said. Stopped? I told her. No, but maybe they'll start listening. Outside, the air smelled of rain on asphalt and freedom. Tom chuckled, lighting his pipe. You just rewrote their rulebook, kid. Not yet, I said. One more thing to do. Because leverage wasn't enough. If I stopped here, the next board would repeat the same cycle. I needed lasting reform, a structure they couldn't twist again. That night, I sat at my kitchen table drafting a proposal. Term limits for board members, 2 terms max. Independent ethics committee drawn from non-board residents. Mandatory annual audits with public posting. Fee rollback of 15% to compensate for fake insurance charges. Open records policy requiring all meeting minutes and votes to be published within 7 days. Rachel reviewed it the next morning. This, she said, is how you turn revenge into reform. Still, there was risk. They could stonewall, delay, or try to rewrite bylaws before the reforms passed. So we needed one more push, a domino cascade they couldn't stop. Ellen's article went live the next day. Local HOA faces fraud, claims after homeowner acquires its own easement. Within hours, it trended on regional news. The insurance carrier called Rachel to discuss coverage implications. Then the HOA's bank froze the community account pending audit. Tom showed up that evening with 2 coffees and a grin. They're finished, he said. Not yet, I replied, looking out at the lake. They still have to sign. The deal. Debate prompt, mid-story. Tell me something. Should one homeowner have to go this far to hold a board accountable? Or do you think every HOA needs outside oversight built into the law? I didn't wait for answers. The next step was already in motion. We set the reform vote for July 10th, and if Carol refused, we had signatures, 43 of 62 homeowners, enough to trigger a recall under Section 6.12 of the bylaws. Revenge had turned procedural, justice by the book. But on the night before the vote, someone slashed my truck tires. 4 deep cuts, surgical, deliberate. The officer who came out looked weary. "Probably random," he said. I knew better. It didn't matter. They could slash every tire in Spokane. The meeting would still happen. As I sealed the envelope with the reform petition, I whispered the same words I'd said to Claire the night we signed the cabin deed. We keep what we build, fair and square. The next morning I packed the binders and the deed and headed back toward the hall, ready to finish what I started. The July 10th meeting felt different from every other gathering at Willow Ridge. People came early, clutching coffee cups instead of complaint slips. The fluorescent hum was replaced by the low murmur of resolve. Even the air conditioning seemed to take sides, blowing stronger on the crowd than the board table. Carol sat in the middle, jaw set like a locked safe. 2 seats beside her were empty. The treasurer and secretary had resigned that morning, emails citing stress-related concerns. I knew the truth. Their insurance carrier had called, suspending coverage until the internal audit was complete. Rachel whispered beside me, domino collapse in motion. The gavel hit the table once, softer than usual. "This special meeting is to address the petition for board reform," Carol said, voice flat. I stood, calm, holding my binder against my chest like a shield of paper. Every homeowner here deserves to know what happened to our dues, our rights, and our peace. So let's vote for change, term limits, transparency, and fairness. Ellen's camera rolled quietly in the back. The red light blinked like a heartbeat. Carol tried to rally. "These reforms will paralyze us. You can't run a community by committee." Tom interrupted, his voice booming. "You ran it like a kingdom, Carol." Applause broke through. Mark Dillard, the county inspector, had agreed to observe again. His uniform gleamed under the lights, presence calm but firm. "All right," he said. "As requested, I'll verify and record the vote count for transparency." Ballots passed from hand to hand, pens scratching, murmurs low. My fingers tingled with that quiet fear that comes before justice. What if it failed? 5 minutes later, Mark announced, 46 votes for reform, 9 against. The petition passes. For the first time in a year, the room exhaled. Carol's shoulders sagged. "You've ruined everything," she hissed at me. "No," I said softly. "We fixed it." She stormed out, leaving the gavel behind, a symbol of power she didn't own anymore. Rachel smiled faintly. "Reversal number 2, she whispered. "Signed, sealed, democratic." Knowledge nugget number 4. Once a community vote amends governing bylaws by supermajority, the new provisions override prior board authority immediately upon certification. No court filing needed. Outside, the air smelled like pine and wet pavement. Reporters were waiting by the steps. Ellen approached, microphone ready but gentle. "Ethan, how does it feel to win?" I looked back at the glowing hall windows. "It's not about winning," I said. "It's about reminding people that rules don't mean control. They mean accountability." That line made the morning news banner the next day. Wit. In a week, Carol resigned officially. Her final email went out at 2:47 a.m., time-stamped like a confession. The state ombudsman opened a file on the HOA's misappropriated funds. The bank lifted the freeze after a new treasurer was appointed, a young accountant named Marcy Lee, who wore floral blouses and believed in open books. For the first time, we had a board that actually represented the neighborhood. But peace didn't come instantly. There were arguments about back fines, repaint policies, even the speed limit inside the gates. Still, it felt like growth, the kind that hurts because it's real. Tom and I rebuilt the dock ramp together one Saturday. He whistled through his teeth, hammering nails. "You think she'll ever apologize?" "Doesn't matter," I said. "We got the lake back." He nodded, eyes shining. "Yeah, and the truth floats, don't it?" Later that evening, I filmed a short message for my channel. If you've ever stood up to a system built to scare you, whether it's an HOA, a boss, or a board, tell me how it went. Did you fight with paper or patience? Drop it below so others learn, or at least like the video if you believe fairness shouldn't need permission. The comments flooded in. Stories from Florida, Texas, Arizona. People who'd been fined for flags, for flowers, for helping neighbors. It felt like the start of something bigger than one dock on one lake. 3 days later, I received a small padded envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was Carol's gavel, polished clean with a note. "You were right about the law. I hope the next board listens better." I placed it on my mantel beside Claire's framed photo. Lila walked up, eyes wide. "Is that the bad lady's hammer?" I smiled. "Not anymore. It's ours now." She giggled, then ran outside to feed the ducks. The lake was calm again, rippling gold under the sun. But for me, it wasn't quite over. I still had one more message to leave. For everyone watching, everyone fighting their own quiet wars against small tyrannies dressed in bylaws. The reform was done, but the story wasn't finished, not until people understood what it cost and what it restored. I didn't sleep much the night after the reforms passed. The lake was silent except for frogs clicking under the reeds, the kind of stillness that makes you hear your own heartbeat. My phone buzzed at 1:13 a.m. An email from Rachel. "Audit findings released. You'll want to see this." The report was 6 pages long. It confirmed everything we'd suspected. $84,000 in unauthorized assessments over 5 years, $19,641 of it, the fake dock insurance. Carol had signed off on every annual budget. The county forwarded the file to the state attorney's office for review. Accountability had a paper trail now, and the paper was mine. By sunrise, local news vans were parked by the Willow Ridge sign. Tom brought coffee and a thermos, smirking. "You ever thought you'd be famous for a dock?" I laughed. "Never wanted to be famous. Just wanted my daughter to feel safe fishing again." Ellen's piece aired at noon. The segment opened with the line, "One man, one dock, and a 20-foot deed that changed a community." They showed footage of the reform vote, neighbors clapping, Carol walking out under the fluorescent lights. Then came the statement from the insurance company. They were terminating the HOA's old policy and requiring board certification before reinstating coverage. That was the sound of institutional justice, quiet and absolute. 2 weeks later, we held the first community workday under the new charter. Kids repainted mailboxes. Neighbors fixed fences together instead of filing complaints. Marcy posted the financials publicly, every line item down to the penny. Transparency felt awkward at first, like sunlight after too long in shade, but it warmed the place. We renamed the dock Claire's Landing. Lila painted the sign herself in blue letters that wobbled a little at the edges. When she hammered it into the post, Tom wiped his eyes, pretending dust had gotten in. That afternoon, I shot the closing narration for the video. The camera framed the lake behind me, water like glass. If you believe I fought the right way, and this is how these stories should end, say a few words for your friend in the comments. Subscribe so the next case reaches you first, and share this so others see that fighting by the rules can still change the rules. We don't fix communities by burning them down. We fix them by reading what they signed and making it mean something again. I paused, letting the wind fill the silence, then said softly, "That's on us." The screen faded to black, but life didn't stop there. In August, Carol entered a plea for misdemeanor harassment, probation, fine, and mandatory ethics training. 2 other board members resigned permanently from HOA work. The state's ombudsman cited Willow Ridge as a model of post-reform governance. The new ethics committee met in the open, streamed on Zoom. A month later, I walked past the bulletin board where HOA notices used to threaten fines. It now held flyers for yard sales, volunteer cleanups, and a small poster reading, "Community First, Always." Sometimes I still catch myself listening for that old patrol boat engine at night. It never comes, just the sound of frogs, of dock ropes creaking, of peace. The last page of my binder stays open to a photograph. The day of the vote, gavel abandoned on the table, light streaming through the blinds. Under it, I've written a line I learned the hard way. Power isn't evil, it's just lazy until someone audits it. Now when Lila asks why people fight over houses, I tell her, because a home isn't just walls, it's where rules learn to have a heart. And every once in a while when a new subscriber emails me their own HOA nightmare, I read it on the PORs, smile, and type back the same closing I'll say to you now. Next case is already printing. Keep your binders ready. The camera of memory pans back across Claire's landing, sun melting into the lake, and the ripples fade into quiet, lawful, earned, unbroken.